the fact that your immunity is based largely responsible for your gut health. Your gut health is largely
True,
responsible for your immunity.
true.
So that seems to be a real talking point amongst
Mhm.
people. There's a lot of magazine articles. There's a lot of press. There's a huge increased awareness about that.
Okay.
And I think that digestive health is we did some surveys, and digestive health is a goal for about 40% of the people that we questioned within the European market. Um, so any of the foods that support that, so the fermented foods, the kefirs, the sauerkrauts, you know the, any of the fermented yogurt based foods, things like that, are all really really popular.
Mhm.
And things like chickpeas as well, and the mung beans and things, they're
Yeah,
really increasingly popular with people because they have that probiotic and prebiotic effect on your gut, and it's just becoming people are becoming very aware of it, and I think that is one of the drivers in the market. And I think the vegetarian options are becoming a lot easier to find, a lot
Mhm.
easier to use. There's
Yeah,
the dehydrated powders of things, so that people can add much more easily. It's cheaper to
right,
ship, so it's great for the planet, and people can add things to their basket easily, take them home, use them when they want to. They don't have to worry about things going mouldy in the fridge.
right.
Um, and then there's also I think the gluten free side is very important as well. Certainly in countries where there's quite a high carbohydrate drive,
Yes,
people are realizing that it's not refined carbohydrates are not very good for you. So they're going towards more vegetable based. There's some vegetable based pastas, and
mm,
it's just it really is very very good. And I think it will, over the next 10 years, will have a huge effect on the population's health as well.
right.
It will improve that, which is also very important, I think.
Hi, Nikki. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you. Thanks very much. Are you well?
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, viewers, good morning. Welcome to the new episode of Sustainable Future Food Talk. Today, we have with us Nickie Daste from the United Kingdom. Nickie is a seasoned CPG professional with more than 20 years of experience in helping innovative and forward thinking brands. She has a rich experience in international business with a huge network and sound knowledge of export regulations, international logistics, customs, and excise. She has extensively traveled across Europe, Asia, and Far East. She is absolutely fluent in French and also has a working knowledge of Spanish and German. She is extremely passionate about healthy eating and sustainability. And outside of work, she recharges herself by gym work, good food, and travel. So, I mean, Nikki, really appreciate your time. Great profile. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's an absolute pleasure to be with you. It's really nice to be able to have the chance to speak with you.
Awesome. So, I mean, since you have spent a lot of time in the CPG industry, and so, I mean, based on that, how do you foresee the changing food landscape in the UK market with the penetration of plant based foods? And if you can throw some light on the existing future food trends as well.
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, obviously, over the last couple of years, especially with the influence of the COVID pandemic, um, there's been a massive increase, and it's really fueled the increase in interest for green foods, for healthy foods, and people equate that with plant based. So it's for anybody involved in that arena, it's a really good opportunity, and sustainability as well. We all know that in terms of the climate, that growing plants is much better in general for the climate and for the world than a very heavily meat based diet. A lot of the world are vegetarians, and it's just sort of really pushing that forward, I think, through the UK and other countries as well, other developed Western countries.
Awesome. So, I mean, one important aspect domestically as well as internationally is around if you have got your products trademarked. So, brand protection, of course, is a very important aspect for any CPG brand.
Yeah.
So, how important this is for a young CPG brand, uh, especially entering the international market?
I think it's incredibly important. It's often something that is underestimated. If you've had a great idea, and you want to share that with a market or export markets as well, the chances are there's somebody watching to see all the new brands coming out. And if you haven't protected yourself, it's very easy for somebody to take that idea and clone it, and it becomes their brand. If they've got more,
Yeah.
perhaps more cash behind them than you have, they can move faster, and you end up, seeing your brand taken over really by somebody else. It does happen. So I personally would really recommend getting stuff. It's not expensive. Get the trademark registered, especially to go via, there's something called the Madrid Protocol, and you
Yeah.
can register in lots of different countries via one website. It's really simple.
Sure.
It's not particularly expensive, and it's really does protect your brand. I think it's incredibly important.
Okay. Okay. That's really useful.
And we have if anybody does want, I'll send you a link afterwards.
Sure.
I have got a document which sort of explains everything, steps to take, questions to ask.
Sure.
I can send you a link to that, and then you can share that with the group.
Absolutely. That should be really useful. Thank you so much. Okay. So, Nickie, of course, we are nearing end of 2021 now, and will make their plans for the new year. So if I can ask your two goals which you have planned for 22, so what would they be?
I think one of the things, I'm working with some really interesting brands at the moment, so hopefully we'll be able to travel as well, meet some of the distributors that we work with, and really sort of understand a little bit more about the changes in markets in other countries. It's always good to sort of have your feet on the ground and talk to people. And I think that those are some of the interesting things. I love traveling anyway, so any excuse to sort of go and visit the people that I'm dealing with is always a welcome one. And I think as well, from on a personal level, to sort of try and help influence really the increase in plant-based foods within the UK. Speaking to the big buyers. We speak to the buyers quite frequently of the major supermarkets, the chains, also the smaller buying consortiums that buy for health food shops and farm shops. So it's a real opportunity to help to get things moving really.
So, since you are passionate also about sustainable food and you enjoy healthy eating. So based on that, what keeps you inspired and motivated to help the CPG brands as well to expand globally?
I think it really is sort of, I've always been interested in healthy eating, and I think that it's a great thing, and it has a massive impact on people's lives. We in all countries, I think there is a problem with nutrition. There's a problem with obesity. There's a problem with many diseases that are linked to what you eat. So I think if we can all work together and spread the word, if you like, that really does help to counteract all these problems throughout the world. And I think that can only be good for everybody. So it's a real sort of it's a bit of a mission. It's a bit evangelical of me, but it's I think just helping people to understand foods. And there's a lot done in this country where there's people go onto the television and try and educate, I guess, the ways of combining foods, of getting the best out of them. You don't have to have meat on your plate to have proteins. There's lots of other ways of doing it, and I think that is part of what we do. And also, there's some great ideas out there and foods from around the world which are so interesting and that people don't necessarily know about, and to be able to take those into other countries and help them to expand their penetration of the markets is a real challenge, and it's great when it works well.
Yeah. So this reminds me of our previous conversation wherein you had mentioned that you had visited this plant-based expo which happened in London. So if you can maybe point out some 2 or 3 key takeaways from your trip to the plant-based food expo, that would be really helpful for the viewers.
Yeah, I think the things that seem to be most concern, if you like, to the people there who were there as buyers, there was a lot of offerings, mostly plant-based, were things like they were looking for things that would sell well within their, obviously, on their shelves. There seems to be a sort of a growing interest in healthier ways to still have treats, so less fatty, less sugar, less processed, healthy things. So there were some amazing products there. There were sort of eggs based on mung beans and things like that, which were great and really useful for people who want to follow a vegetarian or vegan diet. But there were also some delicious plant-based ice creams and things like that, which are that I know a lot of the population. For example, I've done a lot of work in the Far East. There's a huge incidence of people who are lactose intolerant. So they like ice cream, but it doesn't like them.
Right.
And then with these brands, one of them based on coconut milk, and that just enables people to enjoy what they enjoy eating, but without the bad effects of it. And I think that that's quite interesting. There are a lot of sort of meat substitutes there. So there was quite a lot of representation of those things.
Sure.
And that is obviously, I guess I've always sort of eaten a lot of plant-based food, so it's not really that they're not really my scene, but I can understand that people who eat meat and want to find a substitute
Right.
for meat would go towards those products, and they seem to be really, really popular. There were some amazing sort of seaweed-based caviar substitutes and things like that, which were really very good. And you think, gosh, this is amazing. There's the innovation that is available in the market is just incredible. It really is. It's inspiring really to see all the ideas that are coming up, and it really does sort of take a little while, I think, to process those ideas and to work out what's going to work best in each market. But I really do think there's a huge future for them.
Awesome. So, of course, of course, pre-pandemic, you have traveled a lot and you have many associates globally. So, if you can throw some light and based on your learnings around the changing consumer mindset and the buying behavior, especially post-pandemic. So, if you can throw some light on that.
Sorry, the last bit I lost the last bit of sound on the.
Yeah. So what I meant was, if you can throw some light on the changed buying behavior of people post-pandemic.
Yeah. Okay. So I think people are very much, one of the main things I think that has come to light recently is the fact that your immunity is based largely responsible for your gut health. Your gut health is largely responsible for your immunity. So that seems to be a real talking point amongst people. There's a lot of magazine articles, there's a lot of press, there's a huge increased awareness about that. And I think that digestive health we did some surveys, and the digestive health is a goal for about 40% of the people that we questioned within the European market. So any of the foods that support that, so the fermented foods, the kefirs, the sauerkrauts, any of the fermented yogurt-based foods, things like that are all really, really popular. And things like chickpeas as well, and the mung beans and things, they're really, increasingly popular with people because they have that probiotic and prebiotic effect on your gut, and it's just becoming people are becoming very aware of it, and I think that is one of the drivers in the market. And I think the vegetarian options are becoming a lot easier to find, a lot easier to use. There's the dehydrated powders of things, so that people can add much more easily. It's cheaper to ship, so it's great for the planet, and people can add things to their basket easily, take them home, use them when they want to. They don't have to worry about things going moldy in the fridge. And then there's also I think the gluten-free side is very important as well. Certainly in countries where there's quite a high carbohydrate drive, people are realizing that it's not, refined carbohydrates are not very good for you, so they're going towards more vegetable based. There's some vegetable based pastas, and it's just it really is very, very good. And I think it will, over the next 10 years, will have a huge effect on the population's health as well. It will improve that, which is also very important, I think.
Absolutely. So I think, of course, one major takeaway from this is that people have started focusing a lot on building their immunity. So I think
absolutely,
immunity building foods will really shape up well.
Yeah, I don't know. I know in India you use a lot of turmeric. Huge amounts, but that really has. You can get absolutely anything with turmeric in it now in the UK. There's drinks, there's teas, there's cold drinks, there's turmeric lattes in the coffee shops,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
sorts of things everywhere because it's got that reputation, and that's,
Right.
has now really sort of filtered down, if you like, into the general market. So it's, but those sort of foods that have got that reputation, that have been used, many of them for hundreds of thousands of years in natural medicines, are being
Right.
adopted by the sort of the general public as they
Yes.
realise why they've been used. They are good for you. This is why,
Right. Absolutely. And of course, there is of course people who want to consume turmeric, but not in the food form. So, and I mean, maybe a funny part for people like us who are consuming turmeric since our childhood, but they have started consuming turmeric tablets now, which are, I
oh
mean,
yes, that's right. Yeah. Yes, you can buy it, as I said, in any way, any form.
yes.
They're even brewing beers that have turmeric added to them in this country now, which is
Is it?
just crazy. But there we are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Awesome.
think it's, people are going to eat and drink a wide variety of foods, and if they can, it really is adding these extra ingredients, if you like, these extra
Yes.
health giving ingredients, that is making the difference to whether something walks off the shelf. I mean, literally 2 years ago, if you went into a UK supermarket, you would not have been able to find anything with turmeric added to it. You'd
I
find it
am
in the
sure.
spice aisle, but
Yeah.
now it's everywhere. It's just
Everything is.
incredible. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, you say, if there's a reason behind it, then, and the press, and I think, because of the pandemic, that's helped as well. People are
Yes.
very, very concerned about what, their health and their immunity. So it's really boosted. Anything to do with boosting your health and immunity has just, the sales have gone crazy.
Right. And I mean, people are happily spending on that now, right? Because
Mm.
there are, of course, other expenses, maybe in terms of travel or other expenses which are cut. So people are now focusing on these healthy products and hygienic products as well. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think that, other sort of surveys that we've done have sort of indicated that people are far more willing to spend extra money on something that they see as healthy for themselves and for
yes,
their families. I think everybody cares about their family, their immediate family, their friends, and they really want to help them live the best life they can.
right.
So they're trying to, to spend a little bit more perhaps on something, rather than going out and buying something that's not very good for them. They'd rather spend a little bit more and buy something that's got these health giving ingredients.
Right. Awesome. So coming down to my last question for this session. So, I mean, how are you looking at the future of sustainable and organic food going forward?
I think sustainability is a massive focus as well, within the market. I think, global issues such as climate change and pollution are so much in the spotlight,
Mhm.
um, as are the sort of supply chain practices. So whether it's, I think people are very concerned about working conditions, animal welfare, and I think organic is seen as being a cleaner way of growing things. People
Yeah,
are very interested. I think if you've got an organic label on your food, people automatically trust it.
right.
Um, so we, again, sort of, there was some surveys done very recently by a big group called Accenture, who do a lot of European surveys.
Mhm.
Excuse me. And they were saying that over half of consumers um, take into account environmental credentials when they're buying their food. They'll walk into a
Is it?
supermarket, and if they've got a choice between something in a plastic packet or something in a paper bag, they'll buy the thing in a paper bag, because they know that the paper bag is compostable, it's not going
Yes.
to go into landfill. I think plastic is a major no-no at the moment. We have to find alternatives for that.
Right.
So anything that's organic, that is deemed, has the labels, has the certification, is just, it gives people that extra confidence to buy things. And I think it's very, very important. I think the three things that came up as most important when people were shopping for grocery was,
Mhm.
that it was healthily grown, i.e., no pesticides and additives and things,
Right.
reducing plastics, and reducing food waste.
Mhm.
So if you take into account all of those things when you're putting your product onto the market, I think that really will make a difference to how successful you are. It's having that story to tell, really, being able to
Yes.
say this is what we do, this is how we produce it. We take care of the ingredients from the very beginning. We're very careful what we buy, we're careful how it's produced, we're careful how it's shipped, and I think all of those things make a big difference to how successful things are, certainly in the, shall we say, the markets where people have a higher disposable income.
Yes.
People are more likely to look at those things. Obviously, if you're really struggling to make ends meet, then you don't necessarily have the luxury of making those choices. But I think for most people, certainly within the European markets, those are major concerns.
Absolutely. And of course, this is the future now, because people are getting a lot more conscious towards the environment as well, and their eating habits as well. So these two things will primarily constitute the sustainability impact. So
I think people do want to know where their food's grown, how is it grown, how is it produced.
Yes.
With all the press about the deforestation and everything, you obviously know India produces a huge amount, for example, of fruit and vegetables. They're a massive producer. They've got such a varied climate. You can grow pretty much anything. And that is a huge advantage, because you can say, well, we're not forcing things to grow in places they wouldn't naturally grow. They'll grow in these places because we have everything we need to grow it. So from that point of view, it really is a sort of a food basket of the world. You can grow so much there. And for example, in the UK, if we try to grow, they won't, but if you tried to grow oranges or mangoes and things like that, we don't have the heat, so it would have to be under polytunnels, it would have to be heated, and all of those things would make it unviable in terms not only of cost but of the planet and of sustainability.
Yes. So I think this is a really important point to talk about, and of course implement as well, and those small steps only will lead to that right thing for the environment.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the consumer mindset's definitely changed.
Yes.
People are incredibly concerned about that. From people of all ages, and the younger generations are possibly, they are the people I know of this, in their sort of the millennials and the generations there, are so interested in what they're eating. They're so interested in where it comes from. And they will actually not buy things if they don't believe in that it's one, it's good for them, or secondly, that it's sustainable. They just won't bother. They won't buy it. So it's, in terms of when you're looking at consumer brands and you're taking a brand to market, you have to have the credentials behind you, because otherwise it's just another brand that will sit on the shelf.
Right. And I think, as rightly mentioned, it is about that young generation which is getting educated and aware for sustainability, which will be useful for the long-term thing, because of course the disposable income to buy such products is important, but that will of course fall in place if people are well educated and well aware around these aspects.
Absolutely. I know people who are younger people who don't necessarily have a particularly high income, but who will still make those choices.
Yes.
And they will still say, well, actually, I won't buy new clothes. I want to eat well. Yeah. I'll wear the clothes I've got, but I'd rather spend my money on good food. I'd rather eat for my health and for my well-being and for the planet than, go and buy a new dress or a new pair of shoes or something. So Absolutely. It's really important, and I think you ignore that at your peril, really, in terms of being a food brand.
Right. And I'm sure nowadays it is taught since the childhood, and from the time the child is going to school and all, so it becomes very important from the school education itself.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's that there is that education. There's a huge awareness. The social media is full of sort of information. People have very easy access now, right. So and you used to be able to sort of whitewash things a bit with a nice advert and a little slogan. And I think now you really have to be able to prove your credentials, because people do check up. They will look into what your brand's doing, where do you buy your raw materials from, and people can find that out very easily now.
Yes. And I think, that's critical overall for the organization as well, to grow and sustain in the long term. These parameters are very important.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. So I was just saying, there was a recent survey of more than 25,000 consumers across 20 plus countries,
Yeah.
and then follow-up groups and everything. Um, and again, over 50% of consumers said that the pandemic had caused them to rethink their personal purpose, reevaluate what was important to them, and sustainability and eating well came out right at the top of their lists for everybody.
Yeah.
And it is just incredible what a change it has had on people's ideas. I think the
Right.
change was happening anyway, but it was happening relatively slowly, and it's just been sort of probably gained 10 years in the last 2 years, I think, in terms of thought progress.
Right. Absolutely. Awesome. I think, Nikki, the kind of responses which you gave, these are really incredible and super useful for the viewers. So really appreciate
Great.
it. And it is clearly evident. I mean, the kind of global exposure which you have, I mean, that was pretty much evident in your responses. So thank you so much
Yeah,
once again, and really appreciate your time.
a pleasure. And I'll send that link over to you, Dhawal, for the patents and trademarks information.
Sure.
And then
Absolutely.
you can put that out there so people can have a look at it. It might be useful for people.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, and you have a great weekend ahead. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.